FIRS has been able to generate, in the last 6 months, 5.5 trillion naira, yes, which is the highest it could ever generate in 6 months. Now that you have a new boss in charge, what would be your suggestions as regards generating more revenue, the issue of multiple taxation, and then for them to be able to meet up with their target for the year?
Yeah, for me, really, I think there's a whole lot in for the new boss as he assumes office. And of course, this is also in line with what the regime currently is doing in terms of how to simplify the tax processes in Nigeria to ensure that there are no multiple taxations. Of course, the businesses must be allowed to breathe. And that is what is important, because if the businesses are not breathing, the poor will not be able to breathe. The new boss must find a way to get how to broaden, the tax net and pull in more people rather than multiplying taxations. And I think this is where, of course, we really need to focus on. A whole lot of people are not currently on the tax net. How he is going to drive this process using technology to see how to drag in people into the tax nets, and not just coming into the tax nets that people are paying what is due. Because it's also very important. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people under-declare profits, and that, of course, is taking away revenue from government. So we must be able to put it in such a way that is transparent enough that people pay what is due. And I think that's how other countries are surviving. Mm. You see, you can't collect revenue on behalf of government and you're not remitting it. Mm-hmm. So this is important, and I think this is where really they need to focus emphasis. And I know that if we broaden the base and streamline the tax processes, we will earn more money, Nigeria will be better for it, and of course, we will see the prosperity and the wealth that the president has promised to the nation.
Fantastic. I want us to take a look at the B part of that news item, where the outgoing FIRS chairman was asked to proceed on a 3 months of pre-retirement leave. What's that, pre-retirement leave?
Well, a bit of politics and and economy there.
Okay.
You see, I think what the president is trying to do is to have a system that is foolproof. You see, you will not be able to see the things that are hidden if you have to rely on the old hands to do some certain things. Now, it's getting more interesting now. We see that, of course, there's a forensic audit that is going on in CBN. Probably we also need a forensic audit.
In the FIRS.
In FIRS. Because apart from the fact that, of course, you see a huge revenue also coming, there's also a very huge cost of collection. So somebody also need to put an eye on that and see what it is. Because what is important to Mr. President is to see how we can develop. And if you hear him speaking to the delegation from Rivers yesterday, he was so passionate. And he said, our people, they need so much from us. And we must not disappoint them. And if we are not going to disappoint those who have put them, of course, who are giving him the job to do, using his word, then, of course, there must be adequate revenue. And you know that the Minister of Finance had promised that they don't want to borrow money to run these administrations, but they have to look inward to see what is happening. And so some things may be happening around FIRS to see the operation, whether they were clean enough, whether they were open enough or transparent enough. And of course, this process is part of government governance issues that I think that the president is bringing on board for me.
All right, moving on to enhance the efficiency and competency of Nigeria's civil servants. Over 9,000 civil servants took part in the computer-based test confirmation and promotional examination across the country. You know, we have a station now where we talked about skills gap. That was a few days ago when it comes to the civil service. Now, about 9,000 civil servants took part in a computer-based test. According to the head of service, it's a way to bring reform into the civil service. I remember when you were speaking with us a few days ago, you talked about reforms in the civil service. Do you think this is a right in this idea is going towards the right direction?
Oh, very, 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 very. You see, having interfaced with the public service for some time, there's a whole lot that has been on the pipeline that, of course, even the people who practice will not want to happen. And that's the concept of the e-government. And that's where we are really losing. Because the problem we have as a nation is a problem of trust deficit, where people don't believe that people don't get job on merit or get contracts on merit because you have human interference and interventions. So if you publicize employment, for example, or a contract, people bid, I know it's like they say, because Femi is from Ekiti, therefore the man who got the contract is from Ekiti, is this Barakbo connection. And this really creates a whole lot of distrust. Now, but once people understand that these things are done electronically, it will make a lot of sense. Why am I giving this background? Because on the 28th of this month, I have seen a flyer that, of course, there's a comprehensive program for e-government that is being championed by the Ministry of Finance. What that means is that the Nigerian government will be completely governed electronically. So there will be little human interference. And this, of course, will help create trust in the process. Because we are not going to employ new people to drive this e-governance process, it is important that these civil servants that are currently working must begin themselves to get used to what e-governance is. And so this for me is a good starting point, that even their assessment has to be computer-based, because there are a whole lot of them who are not computer literate. And so they must begin to get used to computers and understand the process. You see, because the argument has always been that, oh, we cannot do full e-government because we don't have the bandwidth that can support it. Oh, we don't have internet everywhere. There's so much illiteracy everywhere. But the real truth of the matter is that we can run e-government if we're determined, if the civil servant want it to work. And I think this government is also very clear in this direction, that they want government to be done electronically. Access every service, 24/7, anywhere you are in the world, without necessarily have to, of course, come to see somebody. And we have to rely on AI, humanoids, to drive this process. Transparency will become higher, responsibility and accountability will become better, and openness in government will be much more. So this is my own perspective to it. This is a build-up to the new era of driving government through the internet.
A build-up to a new era reforming the civil service. Another good news, the Lagos State University has introduced Yoruba language as a mandatory course for all its students, starting from the next academic session. What does it speak about, the need to promote indigenous language in the house?
Well, there's so much that, of course, we could really get from language, because it's really the foundation for every culture, because it helps understanding better. But you see, my real worry is that I don't know how this really can be of help, especially in the era that we are at the moment. Of course, you see, Lagos is a metropolis. It's a mini Nigeria. So, which means anybody who comes in here and want to get into LASU, who lives in Lagos, must have to speak Yoruba language if it becomes a requirement. But I've seen this happen even in the lower Keda. My son, when he was in a primary school, every time he comes home with a result, I keep asking his teacher, how did he score 80 in Yoruba and he don't know how to greet a Karo in Yoruba? Well, so it's a language academy, but this is a problem. So teaching language is important, especially if we are going to use it to drive the process of learning. See, people learn mathematics in Chinese. People learn physics in Japanese.
Absolutely.
Now, if this is what the government intends to do for comprehension and ability to understand the subject matter, oh, fantastic.
Okay.
But if this is just going to be another ritual that people have to fulfill all righteousness and have to stress themselves to just pass Yoruba language without not able to speak the language, then it will be an exercise in futility to
it's like you're a mind reader. I was going to say that my colleague Blessing and I hosted a show some days ago, and she said that when you teach people physics in their indigenous language, it's easier for them, which is something you alluded to earlier on. But you were saying that if that is the purpose, then it's fine. But if it's not, it begs the question, why has this been introduced? Yeah. Well, I think I have an answer for you. Yeah. Now, the C part of the news report I read says that LASU not only wants to use this as a commitment to preserving Nigeria's linguistic diversity, but also stress the institution's dedication to nurture, now this is the very important part, that they want to nurture culturally enlightened graduates who can contribute to the promotion and preservation of Nigeria's heritage.
But that's what I'm saying. This is a point. You have a massive outside community. Yes, culture can be taught to people. But when you make it mandatory as a means of any academic qualification, what use really will it be? People, this is for me what is important. And I think when we are crafting policies, we must be also anticipating what we intend to benefit from that policy program. It's important. Its goal is objective. Now, if we're thinking we're going to teach Yoruba so that we can use it for coding, which is the new language, which is the new culture, it will make a lot of sense. For me, in the 21st century, if you are teaching Yoruba culture, you are teaching Yoruba language, I don't know how many elements of culture that will be incorporated in that. Maybe 1 semester course or 2 semesters, which will not even be enough to learn the alphabet. When, as a theologian, we went to school and were asked to read Hebrew and Greek, it took me almost 3 years to be able to learn the alphabet, let alone speak the language.
Okay.
You see, these are important matters that we need to really consider. And I think in a multi-ethnic society like Nigeria, we should be de-emphasizing things that separate us and put a whole lot of emphasis on things that unite us. Now, the point I'm making is that because Lagos is metropolitan, and there are a whole lot of other indigenous and tribal groups in Lagos who also are accessing this service in this university, making it mandatory for somebody, for example, who is studying ICT or engineering that he must pass Yoruba. I don't know how that will help in laying pipes or building road. That's the point I'm making. So, but for me, if it is to say we are going to be teaching we are going to be evolving to be teaching these courses in Yoruba so that people can better understand it and relate with these courses to the artifacts within the environment, it will make a whole lot of sense. That's the point I'm making.